Hello folks, I wanted to take a minute today and do a video on my pastured chickens. This is a new experience that I brought onto the farm back in the early spring of this year. A lot of these chickens, almost all of them, I raised from egg and incubation and got these chicks which grew into these chickens. The chicks and the incubation and the chicks took place back at my house in a hoop house during the winter of last year, and that worked out really well. I got some beautiful chickens, and one of which is my favorite is that rusty colored rooster, which I call Rusty. You'll also notice behind me I've got this futon thing set up, and then I put a bottom on it and threw a tarp over it, and that is kind of a shade shelter for the chickens. We've got a lot of hawks up here on the farm, and I like to feed them underneath that shade structure so they're not bothered by the hawks. Now another thing that I did for the hawks this year was I ran a couple strips of poly wire right across the top of, or right down the middle of my contained area with electric netting. Now what this poly wire does is it discourages the hawks from swooping down in because they don't want to get tangled in the poly wire. This is another thing I did for the hawks. Took a piece of rebar, put a hole in the top, and I slid this board down over top of the rebar, and I hung some music CDs from it. And what these do is they turn in the wind. When the wind blows them around, they start flipping around, and the sun bounces off the bottom of these and sends reflections everywhere. The hawk's not too sure what that is, so he avoids the area. These have helped also. I have a couple of these set up around this perimeter. Now these pasture chickens are contained by electric netting, 2 rolls, and we set them up an area. We place the coop in one end of it. We try to do them always like a long rectangle with our netting, and we set the chicken coop up at one end. Every 3 days I move the coop, the length of the coop, just so there's new grass underneath of it. And the reason for that is underneath the perches inside the coop, I have a wire mesh floor, so all the droppings fall right through into the pasture. Now once we reach the other end of the netting, which takes about a week and a half, then the whole system is all packed up and we move everything to a new location. That supplies new forage for the chickens as far as bugs and grass. And it also helps build the fertility in those areas that we move to. Now, I can tell, since I started this in the spring, the spots that we have been just by driving through and looking at the response from the grass. It is just so brilliantly bright green, and it is growing nice and lush. It is just beautiful. I'm very anxious for the cattle to come back to the front of the farm and to find that grass and see their reaction. But that is yet to happen, and we're still letting it stockpile up. So I want to move you in a little closer and kind of show you my coop. I threw that together right before I brought the chickens to the farm. And here on this farm there used to be oil wells. Those oil wells were removed many years ago, but when they removed them, they left all the steel 3-inch well casing that connected them all. So we have about 1.5 miles of that steel well casing, and I took that opportunity to use that steel well casing to build my coop. Move you in a little closer and I'll show you real quick. Okay, if we look down here at the bottom, you can see where I've used that well casing. What I did is I made me a giant sled to put the coop on. I made it 6 foot wide and 12 foot long. You can also see on the ends that I tapered the pipe so that it wouldn't catch on anything, because since it don't have wheels, I just simply drag this with my truck or tractor to the new location. As we come up a little bit, you'll see my windows. Inside them windows, which you cannot see from here, there is chicken wire. So those windows have stayed open all summer long, and it has not been a problem. Has not. Now, one thing I want to point out real quick before I move on is you'll notice that my chicken coop is elevated off the ground. I did this for a reason. This is another form of shade and protection for the chickens. When they feel threatened, they can run right under there and they're safe. Okay, so let's move around to the other side. This is where all the action happens. As you can see where the chickens standing there, that's their ramp and their door. But you know, I tried to do a lot of this with stuff I had. The really only expense I had in this was the metal and the roofing. This is an old door. I found the deer antler here on the farm. Had the lock. I had majority of this. Watch out, girls. We're going to give the tour. Okay, straight in, you can see 9 boxes. Not all the same, but they work. They work very, very well. Going around here, I took a piece of downspout or gutter, and you can see it running right here. It actually runs the whole width and actually curves a little bit behind them nesting boxes. Those are going to need moved here eventually. But what that is going to be my winter feeder. So all the feeding will then be done inside the coop, and you can see the wire mesh floor there, because when they eat, they poop. That's just how it works. On this side, you can see my perches, and you can see the wire mesh floor, and you can see some of the droppings that have not fallen through. For them, I'll use a shovel and just simply scoop them and throw them out into the pasture. Okay folks, so the way this works is first thing in the morning, I come up, I let them out about 7:30 in the morning. I release them from their coop. In the evening, I come up 8:30, 9 o'clock, midsummer, and the chickens are already in. I'm able to slide down their door and lock their ramp up, and that keeps them contained in case anything would get into this electric netting overnight. I've also been buying certified organic feed. Okay, I get 40-pound bags for $25 a piece for a 40-pound bag. So it was costing me roughly $100 a month to feed these chickens at that price, paying for the organic feed. So the guy that I manage the cattle for, I was telling him about this, and he said you need to talk to the landowner and see if she would let you go to non-GMO, which was a great suggestion. And I talked to her, and she agreed. So what that's done is taken my $100 a month in feed down to $52 a month. Huge difference from organic to non-GMO. Chickens still like it just the same, and it's helping me out a lot. Now, at the same time that I took on this project this year, Walmart and Aldi's decided to offer their eggs for $1.88 at different times, and these crazy egg prices make it hard for a person like me to get out there and get my eggs sold and make a decent amount. I can't sell eggs for $1 a dozen and make money off of this operation. So that's where I'm at now. I've got to explore some different marketing techniques and figure out where my eggs belong. We have a handful of customers. The problem is after you get a couple customers and they hang around for a month or two, just one day they don't show back up. You don't know if there was a problem with the eggs, if they found a better deal. You're clueless. You don't know. So we're assuming that everything was all right with our eggs, and the customer just found a better deal. Without the customer telling us any feedback, we don't know. So there you go, folks. Just a little rundown on my pastured poultry setup. I hope to figure out a few of these kinks and work them out over the next few months, maybe year, and maybe even throw in a few more chickens into the mix. Right now I've got 30. We raised, I think, 60 from incubation, but a good percentage of those turned out to be roosters, and I've narrowed it down to 3 roosters. I recently considered taking it down to 2 for winter because they're going to be contained in the coop a lot on days that we have snow, and I don't want any fighting going on in the coop. But I left it at 3 just in case a predator would pick one off. I've got one to fall back on. So that's my reasoning. Thanks for watching JC's Organic Farming. And if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. I'd appreciate it. Let me explain what that thumbs up does real quick. When you give me a thumbs up, you're telling YouTube, suggest this video to other people. That was a great video. When you give me a thumbs down, you're telling YouTube, do not suggest it. You do not recommend the video at all. So the thumbs up actually helps me greatly. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time out in the pasture.